Hello, and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News Channel. Today we are going to talk about a possible Ripple IPO and would that be good for XRP price. Now I'm going to talk about this because they recently got a Series C funding. Series C a lot of times happens like pre-IPO to get things ready. According to the valuation, it was roughly $10 billion because they basically sold like 1% of the company at 200, like 2% of the company, I mean, at like 200 million or something. So the entire company is worth about $10 billion right now. Now, some people think that Ripple is going to get bought out, and they said like Swift is going to buy out Ripple. That doesn't make any sense because Swift isn't actually a company. It's essentially an organization that's paid for by the larger banks. The only corporations that could actually buy Ripple would be like the mega corporations like Apple or Amazon. They would be the only companies that actually have enough, because if you're valued pre-IPO at about 10 billion to actually buy you out, I would think you would need like 20 or 25 billion dollars to actually buy the company out. And there's not a lot of companies that can do that kind of buyout. And if the buyout happens, then it's very tenuous of what happens to XRP. Like the companies might want to separate the two things. They might just want the software but not the crypto. Like it's anyone's guess what happens if, like, Google or Apple or Amazon buys buys Ripple out. We're not going to talk about that right now because that's too complicated. We're going to talk about what happens if they actually IPO and what will that do for the price. My guess is if that they IPO, they will actually significantly increase Ripple's value. Not so much XRP's value, but Ripple's value. But that also opens up the can of worms that you're now at the mercy of investors and stakeholders. And your decisions are going to be more short-sighted for the most part. That's what happens generally when a company IPOs. So I do think there will be an initial boost to XRP price because there's going to be such a high valuation for the company. I would think like if it IPO'd, you would value the company at 25 billion dollars, and that kind of valuation would probably somehow affect the price of XRP. So there will be a pump when it first IPOs, I guess. I don't think it'll be a huge pump, but there will be a pump. And you might want to hang on to it for a while because of the short-sightedness of a lot of the stakeholders. Because when you IPO, you essentially fight for short-term profits instead of long-term potential, because when you IPO, like quarterly profits mean everything to investors. Like screw all the long-term vision plans and all that stuff. People want quarterly profits because they want dividends, and they want appreciation in their stock price because of quarterly profits. So short-term quarterly profits become like king after a company IPOs. Unfortunately, that's just what happens a lot of the time. And that's actually why, like, the company I used to work for, Epic Systems, which is a medical company, has never IPO'd because they don't want to be at the mercy of random investors. So I think if it first IPOs, because the valuation of the company will grow, I think XRP will actually grow in price. And I think initially, the people who actually bought in Ripple, they will actually want to pump up XRP's price because that would mean that Ripple, the company, would actually be worth more. At least temporarily, which means they could actually sell out at a profit. Of course, once you IPO, you're under much heavier regulatory scrutiny, so you wouldn't actually be able to do that for very long. So there might be like an initial pump in XRP price because of the IPO stuff, and also because some of the investors might attempt to pump the price of XRP up, so Ripple's actually worth even more. But like I said, because there's going to be so much regulatory oversight, that won't last for all that long. And I think like in the mid-long term, it could actually hurt XRP's price because remember, like when you IPO, you do become more short-sighted and the investors are more focused on short-term quarterly profits rather than long-term potential. So what that means is they want to maximize quarterly profits. And how do you maximize quarterly profits for Ripple, the company? Well, you sell XRP or you sell the escrow, basically. So instead of like locking up 900 million every month in the escrow, they would actually attempt to sell most or all of it, even at discount prices. Because even at discount prices, as long as you beat the street's earnings expectations, the stock price will go up, and that makes investors happy. So they're going to want to like drain that for all it's worth. Because a lot of these people that buy at the IPO, they just want their stock to go up Doesn't really matter to them if it's short term, long term. They just want the stock to go up so they can actually make money. So they would actually pressure Ripple to sell more of the escrow, which would just basically be dumping at XRP holders. Because remember, us as XRP holders, we don't actually own part of the company. We have no say in whatever the hell they do. Owning XRP does not give you any say in Ripple voting, and it does not entitle you to a share of the company. So like, shareholders actually have power in the company. XRP holders have crap in the company. So what we think and what we want don't really matter to Ripple, but what the major stockholders want definitely matter. And the stockholders are going to want Ripple to boost up their quarterly earnings, so so the cryptocurrency, so the company can actually be worth more, so they can sell out for profits. So essentially, they're going to want to pressure Ripple to sell out as much XRP per month as they possibly can. And that actually would have more of a dumping effect for a couple of years to come. That would have more of a dumping effect for a couple of years to come, and that would depress XRP price for at least like the next 3 or 4 years, in my opinion. So I don't think the overall Ripple IPOing would actually be good for XRP price. There might be like an initial pump just to make the company actually worth more, but after that, I would think like there's going to be more of a bleed out because they're going to sell more of the escrow each month than they are now because of investor pressure. So I am actually not in favor of Ripple IPOing or being sold out. I think XRP has a much more solid trajectory if they stay private. And if they IPO or sold out, it's much more tenuous on what the future of XRP is. The future of Ripple, if they IPO or sell out, will be very bright. But the future of Ripple does not quite mean the future of XRP if it's acquired by another entity or if they IPO, because those will be two entirely separate. And especially if they IPO and if the investors want to boost up short-term profits, they actually might be opposite goal. There actually might be opposite goals for Ripple and XRP, because the investors who own the Ripple shares, they basically are going to want to use XRP as an asset to boost up Ripple's profits, rather than actually look at the long-term ramifications for XRP itself. Because investors, after the IPO, they are much more short-sighted than 10, 15 years in the future. They don't care about 10 or 15 years in the future. They want the profits for the next quarter. So that is the news for today. I think Ripple should stay private, and I think that's the best case for XRP. So let me know what you think, like and subscribe, and hit that bell notifications button. Thank you, and have a nice day.